or good morning, depending on where you are in the world. It will be good morning or good evening. My name is Judith Mendoza. I am an evangelizer and also I am a Bible teacher and one of Jehovah's Witnesses. Today I will be speaking in giving a presentation regarding Jane Roe versus Henry Wade, which, in my opinion, and actually, I will be giving the information, and I always speak in my opinion. And so, Jane Roe versus Henry Wade, more than a woman's rights issue. And that's what I have titled it. The presentation for today is based on the scriptures. It is presented by Judith Mendoza, and I am presenting it in the manner of the Christ, our exemplar. So I would like to start with the topic and mention this first scripture, which it will explain our existence from the point of view of God, Jehovah God. And so looking at Genesis chapter 2, verses 7, the record there mentions that Jehovah God went on to form the man out of dust from the ground and to blow into his nostrils the breath of life, and the man became a living person. So I want to explain in regards to our body composition, and then what is a soul and what is this breath of life. Well, in the beginning, when God made the first human, he made this human out of the dust, the ground. And so he he made this man. God made this human, male, man. He formed it out of the ground with his power. And then, after he had formed this ground or this dirt, he molded it into a male man. Then God proceeded to blow into the man's nostrils, the nose, right? The breath of life. And so the man became a living person. That was the one and only act or act, short for action. That was the action that was actually in that way for that man that was created by God with his own breath of life, which basically started everything that formed that man. It says over here that God proceeded to blow into the man's nose the breath of life. So he ignited life into this man so he could breathe, His heart could beat. He had life. He was connected to life, to being alive. So, referring to the soul means the body which dies. When we die, our body dies, and that breath of life that each and every one of us has inside of us, that sustain life, goes back to the one who gave it. And of course, that is God. So two separate things, right? The soul, or the body of the human. In that case, in that situation, this man was formed out of the ground, and with the breath of life, he became a living person, or a living soul. Now, of course, after that, the woman was created, was built from the man's rib. And so, why not from the ground also? Well, it was suitable that, and we have the understanding uh, that uh, Adam could understand the reasoning into why. And so, when God um, created the woman, and he finished with her creation, then it tells us on chapter 2 of Genesis, verses 22, and it says, "And Jehovah God built the rib that he had taken from the man into a woman, and he brought her to the man. Then the man said, This is at last bones of my bones and flesh of my flesh. This one will be called woman, because from man she was taken." And so he could appreciate her. He could appreciate Eve even more, because he was part of himself. Now, of course, it says that uh, the rib had been taken from the man, and that is what God turned into a woman, or he built in the rib to um, make this woman be part of human creation, because it is part of the man, not that he was taken from the ground, that she was taken from the ground also. And so the point is, explaining this is a matter of why we say, we, those who believe uh, that we were created, we believe that life is sacred. Life being sacred, being created by God, means that he has the right to govern over his creation. And so the issue is in regards to these supposed women's rights, which, by the way, all humans have free will. Free will that has not been given by any man, is innate. When there is conception of the ovary by the man's sperm, everything that a woman, that a human will become later on, including having a sense of justice, having a free will that one know that one have, and each and every human has this capacity, unless of course there are some uh, that because of their limitations uh, are unable to understand these matters. But those are exceptions. I'm talking and I'm referring to the majority of us, the population that can understand these matters and can choose to live by this or not, because of course we have free will, as I mentioned. And so this case of Jane Roe versus Henry Wade is a matter, in reality, is a matter that has to do with what God requires of us humans and what we humans can choose to do because we have free will. And basically, also, that is the reason why we have the matter, the case that has been developed since the beginning uh, when Adam and Eve decided to disobey God and they wanted to rule themselves. We humans have been continuing in the same track as Adam and Eve. We humans have been uh, ruling ourselves. Well, there are some that become rulers of others, and basically, it is the ones that overpower others, then that is what happens. And those who become overpowered, even though we have free will, even though we have free will, each and every one of us have free will in an equal manner, meaning that I am a human who should be able to make uh, justice work in the way that God uh, set for it to be done. When there is a problem, or there is a problem with this matter when it comes to we humans wanting to become or be or appear to be moral, but yet wanting to do things that are immoral. The case in regards to, or the situation in regards to this case, involves that a woman or women supposedly have the right to privacy in the matter of if she wants to decide to have an abortion or not. The thing is that a child does not is not is not the woman, and it was not made by the woman only for there to be said that there can be such privacy, even though the matter of um, killing will still apply, of course. Even if the woman could reproduce her own child, but we know that that's not the situation. We know that a man was made to uh, procreate, but by the means of having sexual relations with a woman. We there is restrictions in regards to how we use sex, because we can procreate life by having sex. The thing is that there are some who want to who want to satisfy their sexual arousal, sexual desires by having casual sex, being promiscuous. And they do not want a family, they do not want to get married. I refer to those who are promiscuous, humans who are promiscuous, humans who uh, are only interested in gratifying their own sexual desires. And for that, as humans have allowed themselves to be in the situation where a man and a woman have sex, and uh, it may not last longer than that one night, and then the next day they don't want to have anything with each other. That is not uh, how God intended for us to use the power that we have to procreate life. When it comes to the situation that happened, um, Jane Roe versus Wade, and keeping in mind uh, that this was about a woman who never went through an abortion, a woman who had um, had a bad in life. She had, and I am going to um, look for the information that I have found. And this woman, Jane Roe, which was the name given so that her real name, which is her identity, could be hidden from others. And so that way they will protect the woman's identity, and um, people could concentrate on the name Jane Roe. And there have been many Rose, Jane Rose, after the first one, which, by the way, never had an abortion. The name is Norma McCorvey. That is the Jane Roe, who was 22, unwed, mired in addiction and poverty, and desperate for a way out from a pregnancy that she had. And let me see what day that was. I believe it was on June 22nd, in 1973, the Supreme Court decided and established a constitutional right to an abortion. And that's what we know. That's what we concentrate on, right? When we hear in the news, we only hear from here, from uh, the case. This case where this woman was seeking to get rid of the child that she had. This woman had had two children before this one here, uh, and she had had a two daughter. Well, she had three daughters. Melissa was the first one. She's the eldest. Jennifer is the middle child, and then Shelley is the one that everyone was in a hurry to get rid of through an abortion. It did not happen. Shelley Lynn Thornton was born, was not killed, was born. Now, there have been many cases that are based on this case. This case that did not have any foundation, any real foundation, and it still, until today, continues to be the foundation uh, to kill babies. Excuse me. Before this, this woman, and how this woman came to be of importance, it was based on something that had been existing before, people that had been existing before, who, according to what I have read and the information that I've read today here, was made available in 2017 by the Washington Post. That information that I've read for this woman's profile, right? Now, there is other information. Once you look up at one information, then others come. The other information you have to go to, and basically, you go to the late 1800s, and you find that there were people wanting to do something about conception, or not conception, but contraception, meaning that that the person who wanted to do this, which was Margaret Sanger, was looking for the way to make the matter of contraception a legal matter, which was not legal back then at that time. When it comes to the Bible, in the Bible, there is no mention in regards to contraception. We know that in the Bible record, it is mentioned that some women were um, we're not able to, we're not fertile, we're not able to have children. And so, but that was a natural cause that a woman body could not carry a child or could not develop a child. And so and so that happened. But when it comes to, and the confusion that some have, and they make this into a religious matter, because of course it is from uh, taken from what the Bible teaches. But having the wrong understanding can also make us have wrong actions. And so I am not knowing for sure, but I know that in some religions, the teaching is that whatever child comes along, as you and as well, not you, but okay, so as a husband and a wife engage in the natural thing that we call sex, it can be that as many times as they can procreate a child, and should, according to what some teach. And the reasoning behind this is found in the scriptures in regards to how the scripture is understood. And I will look for the scripture that says this, because we want to understand where these things come from. The biblical account speaks in regards to Onan. Okay, so Onan, who has sex with Tamar, he withdrew before he ejaculated and spilled his seed on the ground, since any child born will not legally be considered his heir. And so we will see, because this man ended up dying. He was killed because of what he did. The reference, we can find it in let me see. I am looking for the scripture. Okay, it's Genesis 38. Okay, let's see. Genesis 38 verse 9. And let me look at that information. Okay, so Genesis 38. And I will read the context so that we can understand a little bit better. So if you start from 38 verse 1, it says, about that time Judah left his brothers and pitched his tent near an Adullamite man named Hira. Then Judah saw the daughter of a certain Canaanite named Shua. So he took her and had relations with her, and she became pregnant. Later, she bore a son, and he named him Again, she became pregnant and bore a son named him Onan. Yet again she bore a son and named him Shelah. He was in Akzib when she bore him. In time, Judah took a wife for his firstborn, and her name was Tamar. Okay, so I want to explain the importance of this for God in regards to maintaining this line of humans that will be born from this group of people that later on we knew as Hebrews, or we know as Hebrews, who were also Jewish in religion, that is considered Jewish, and then their uh, background also uh, was from the people who had received the promise that God had given to Abraham. Now, we see that this Onan is son of Judah, one of Jacob's 12 sons that form the 12 tribes of Israel. The 12 tribes of Israel that were not serving as spiritual guides for the whole group of them. So there were 13 tribes of that grew from or were sons of Jacob that became nations. Judah picks a wife for his first son. That is a custom that is up to our times still done in some countries. Now it says on 7 of 38 of Genesis, but Judah's firstborn, was displeasing to Jehovah, so Jehovah put him to death. Now, it doesn't say why, but you can kind of figure why Jehovah God will be displeased by this man. It could be that he had chosen the Canaanite way. And the Canaanites were idol worshippers, and sex for them was something that they practiced, and uh, sex orgies. There was no pornography back then, but basically, it it was the same thing. People got together to have sex, to have rituals to their gods that included sex, and also uh, in some included that the children or the child that was born was given as sacrifices to the god that they worship. Obviously they did not worship Jehovah God, and so we can kind of assume that the reason why this man was not pleasing to Jehovah was because he had fallen into uh, into that depraved way of living. But it does not mention. Now, the man dies. Now there is a widow. On 8, he continues, in view of that, Judah said to Onan, Judah, the father of Onan, ordered him to have relations with your brother's wife and perform brother-in-law marriage with her and raise up offspring for your brother. It was something that it was done because uh, what they wanted to do was to protect that lineage. Why? They didn't know why, but we know now. So why was it? Well, they were protecting that lineage because, especially from Judah, is where Jesus Christ will be born or was born from the Hebrews. And so it was something that they had decided to do in order and to make sure that the lineage is intact. And they didn't know. They didn't know what God was purposing to do, but they obey. They obey, and so um, prophecies were fulfilled in the way that they were supposed to be fulfilled. And so it mentions on 9, but Onan knew that the offspring will not be considered his. So it will be considered the brother's still, even though the brother died, uh, he's going to be considered as the child of the older brother. So when he did have relations with his brother's wife, he wasted his semen on the ground so as not to give offspring to his brother. What he did was bad in the eyes of Jehovah, so he also put him to death. Judah said to Tamar, his daughter-in-law, dwell as a widow in the house of your father until my son Shelah grows up, for he said to himself, he too may die like his brothers. So Tamar went and stayed in her own father's house. Some time passed, and Judah's wife, the daughter of Shua, died. Judah kept the mourning period, and then he went to his sheep herds in Timnah with his companion Hira, the Adullamite. Tamar was told, here your father-in-law is going up to Timnah to shear his sheep. With that, he removed her widow's clothing and veiled herself and covered herself with a shawl and sat down at the entrance of Enaim, which is on the road to Timnah, for she saw that Shelah had grown up, and yet she had not been given to him as a wife. Right? So these 3 sons of Judah, the youngest one was not was not old enough in order for him to procreate yet. And so they waited, or they were supposed to wait, and supposedly later on, when he was older and able to procreate, then he will carry on the lineage of the brother, the older brother, since the one brother who had wasted his semen in order for him not to conceive a child that will not be taken as his. And so the point is, and over here is that in this, and I'm giving the whole explanation in the scriptures where you can find it, because from these, from the part where it says that he wasted his semen on the ground so as not to give offspring to his brother, and basically concentrating mostly on that he wasted his semen on the ground, and then God killed him because of that. That is the part what that people, some people, like to have as basis for not using contraception, and basically they have the thinking that God will punish one if one uses contraceptive and don't have every child that one could have. And of course, this thing about a brother replacing another in regards to procreation is not done anymore and shouldn't be done. The law changed, and so um, that was not able to be done later on as God gave instructions into this matter. The point was for the Hebrews, and the purpose that God had purpose was for there to be a line of humans that will come from that promise that God had given to Abraham, which God will fulfill. And later on, as God had, Jehovah God had mentioned to Abraham, uh, the whole earth could be, all humans on earth could benefit from the blessing, which resulted to be that Jesus Christ died for us in our behalf, and he can he can um, be a mediator between God, Jehovah, and us humans who are imperfect humans, and um, basically alienated from God. And so, but some religious people um, base themselves in this matter. They have children, as many as they come, and they don't use protection, and basically they want to they 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 want to abide to something that is not what is required in the Bible. It is specific over here what it says in regards to why this man died. He died because he was disobedient, uh, and basically he was selfish, and Jesus Christ was going to be born from their line of humans, especially from Judah. And so, therefore, Jehovah God, put him to death. Because if Jehovah God would have allowed the situation, they already, we know that it says that Judah saw the daughter of a certain Canaanite named Shua, so he took her and had relations with her, and she became pregnant. And it doesn't say that it was his wife, but she bore children to Judah. And so the lineage, of course, was considered from the man's part, because the man is the one who has the power to make this ovary, um, this egg that is inside of the woman, of women, of us women, when we are fertile, and of course, we're no longer fertile after menopause. But for those who of course are fertile, those women who are going through still the process of menstruating, uh, which we call it that, but basically menstruation is the end of the process, right? As I have explained it before. Now, I mention these because when it comes to uh, this case, it has been that this woman, Margaret Sanger, who was a pioneer, it says in the information that I was reading, she's a pioneer in the contraception. And the thing is, right, that I have explained that this ruling in regards to, or these laws that God had for the Hebrews, were for the Hebrews for the reason that Jesus Christ will be born through that line, through their line, especially from Judah. But after Jesus is born, there's no more lineage to protect. Then we become, or we are under the law of the Christ instead of being under the law of Moses. Moses, uh, of course, was a mediator between uh, God's people, the ones that had resulted from Abraham, and um, and so he was Moses was also a mediator between God's people and Jehovah God. Jesus does the same thing in a broader way, in a major way, because it does not only include the Hebrews, it includes the whole world that Jesus mediates, and he will restore pure worship also. So these laws that are found in the Bible are long lasting. Now, this woman, Margaret, she is the one who founded the organization known Planned Parenthood, which, in my thinking, has been, this doesn't make sense. This abortion thing doesn't make sense with this Planned Parenthood, and of course it doesn't, because when you look into the information and you, for example, I found this information in Wikipedia, and Margaret Higgins Sanger was born Margaret Louise Higgins in 1879. So this is about the time, most likely, when people were looking into this matter of contraception. Of course, not taking the views of what the Bible say or not, or understand it, because they were not into that. And uh, those who were opposing and who believe, yes, life is sacred, but who believe that a woman should have and must bear children, have children born, as how it depend. It doesn't depend on how many you want. It doesn't depend on that. But their thinking and their belief, uh, connecting it somehow to this scripture that I read, and thinking, well, you can't use contraception, and that's not what the Bible says. That's not the account about in the Bible. or the reasoning. This woman lived up to the year of 1966. So in 1969 is what is the case of this woman, Norma McCorvey, which later on is known as Roe, as Jane Roe. Margaret Sanger Slee was an American birth control activist, sex educator, writer, and nurse. Sanger popularized the term birth control, and that birth control does go with the Planned Parenthood. It does make sense then. Abortion doesn't make sense with Planned Parenthood, because if you do not want to be a parent in the first place, why would you name it that? The thing is that this woman who was advocating for the right to have birth control uh, and who established this one organization, Planned Parenthood Federation of America, she wanted to have that right, the right to decide if uh, one should have a child, when one should have a child, and there was nothing wrong with that. Now, we know that when it comes to life, life is sacred. This woman, Margaret Sanger herself, had three children. Three children with her first husband, William Sanger. And William Sanger was born in Berlin, in Germany. And was American educated. And I believe that the descendancy from this woman, Margaret Sanger, is Irish. Now, this man, and the reason why I'm mentioning him is because this man was a German born. Uh, he came from a Jewish family, but he did not practice the Jewish religion. In 1878, he was educated in architecture, and then on 1902, he married Margaret Sanger. Margaret was one of the children that her mother had, and there were more than 10, I believe, or about 10. Some of them died because of uh, because the woman had spontaneous abortion, her mother. Now, her mother, most likely, and I have not looked into information, but her mother most likely was um, as those or part of those who believe that um, one should and must have every child that come through the marriage arrangement, the marriage relationship, and have children nonstop until the body actually can produce. The sperm cannot produce any more children, any more any more anymore conceiving, right? So most likely, and I am also, in my opinion, assuming this, Margaret saw the hardship that her mother went through, and she wanted it to be different for her. Margaret had two boys and one girl who died. The girl died before she became an adult. So then for William Sanger, he was part of this movement, this activism that his wife had in regards to making birth control available. Now, she then married James Noah Slee, and that's how she becomes Slee, James Noah Slee. And she did not drop off her first husband's name. She kept that name, even though they separated and they divorced in 1921. She finally got a divorce from her husband, ex-husband, and then she was able to marry on 1922. She was able to marry James Noah Slee, who also, not much is said about him, but this man, Noah Slee, also, this is according to Jenny.com, and the other information is from Wikipedia. And so this man, this second husband that she had, helped her in the work that she was doing. In 1928, Slee will smuggle diaphragms into New York through Canada in boxes labeled as 3-in-1 oil. He later became the first legal manufacturer of diaphragms in the United States. Sanger is buried in Fishkill, New York, next to her sister Nan Higgins and her second husband Noah Slee. And so that is what is said in regards to the second husband, who obviously, because of what he did, was able to make it be possible, make it be true, this thing that she was being active, uh, wanting to legalize, which was birth control. So the first form of birth control over here is mentioned, the diaphragm. Now, in when we go back to Sanger, Margaret, is mentioned over here in Wikipedia that Sanger and who kept, of course, the last name of the first husband. Sanger used her writings and speeches primarily to promote her way of thinking. She was prosecuted for her book Family Limitation under the Comstock Act in 1914. And we know that 1914 was a year when the First World War happened. So imagine all of these things going on at that time. In the midst of all of that, this woman is fighting for planned uh, parenthood by means of contraceptions that she had to provide also. Now, she was afraid of what will happen, so she fled to Britain until she knew it was safe to return to the United States. Sanger's efforts contributed to several judicial cases that helped legalize contraception in the United States. Due to her connection with Planned Parenthood, Sanger is a frequent target of criticism by opponents of abortion. However, Sanger drew a sharp distinction between birth control and abortion and was opposed to abortions throughout the bulk of her professional career, declining to participate in them as a nurse. Sanger remains an admired figure in the American reproductive rights movement. She has been criticized for supporting eugenics. In 1916, Sanger opened the first birth control clinic in the United States, which led to her arrest for distributing information on contraception. I'm sorry. After an undercover policewoman bought a copy of her pamphlet on family planning, then she got arrested. They had evidence that she was doing this. Um, Her subsequent trial and appeal generated controversy. Sanger felt that in order for women to have a more equal footing in society and to lead healthier lives, they need to be able to determine when to bear children. She also wanted to prevent so-called back alley abortions, which were common at the time because abortions were illegal in the United States. She believed that while abortion may be a viable option in life-threatening situations for the pregnant, it should generally be avoided. Generally be avoided. She considered contraception the only practical way to avoid them, meaning avoid abortions. In 1921, Sanger founded the American Birth Control League, which later became the Planned Parenthood Federation of America. In New York City, she organized the first birth control clinic to be staffed by all female doctors, as well as a clinic in Harlem, which had an all African American advisory council, where African American staff were later added. In 1929, she formed the National Committee on Federal Legislation for Birth Control, which served as the focal point of her lobbying efforts to legalize contraception in the United States. From 1952 to 1959, Sanger served as president of the International Planned Parenthood Federation. She died in 1966 and widely regarded as a founder of the modern birth control movement. Abortion, it is not it is not a contraceptive. So when did Planned Parenthood start performing abortion? Well, by the time that uh, Planned Parenthood began or also began as an abortion provider was after this woman had died in early 1970s. And the information there in regards to her feelings, to her thinking, to her thoughts, to her ideas to what she fought for in Planned Parenthood, according to what Wikipedia record says, she wanted contraception. She wanted to be able to that, control that uh, matter of when she will want to have a baby and when not. Most likely, she witnessed her mother going through um, the process of becoming ill, sick, and we know that every woman, after having a child, uh, lots, and lots of what makes that woman in her body health can be diminished rapidly, and especially if there is malnutrition. That a woman having a baby. Now imagine a woman having one baby after another, and because thinking that I have to do this because this is what God wants. That's not what God wants. So um, this woman was looking for a way for uh, for women to be able to choose how they want to have their children. When, if so, if they want to have children, it did not mean, it does not say that she wanted abortions as this contraception. But in early 1970s, once abortion was legalized during that time in the 1970s, Planned Parenthood, which was appropriately named with what the woman was seeking to do, which was to make contraceptives available. She had the contraceptives, and to make it legal. Now, um, in the time after she died in the 1970s, Planned Parenthood also began acting as an abortion provider. Faye Waddleton became the first African American president of the Planned Parenthood Federation of America in 1978. Faye Waddleton became the first African American president of the Planned Parenthood. Now, who was she? Well, Faye Waddleton is an American reproductive rights who was the first American and the youngest president ever elected of Planned Parenthood Federation of America, and the first woman since Margaret Sanger to hold the position. So, what does Wikipedia says about her? Faye Waddleton was born Alice Faye Waddleton in July 1943. Is an American reproductive rights activist who was the first African American and the youngest president ever elected of Planned Parenthood Federation of America, and the first woman since Margaret Sanger to hold the position. She's currently co-founder and director at EroQ, a quantum computing company. And It doesn't tell me when this information was provided, but it says this biography of a living person relies too much on references to primary sources. October 29. Okay. So Waddleton was born in Louis, Missouri in 1943, the only child of a construction worker father and a mother who was a seamstress and a Church of God minister. So, Faye Waddleton attended Ohio State University at the age of 16. She was awarded a bachelor's degree in nursing in 1964 and went on to teach at a nursing school in Dayton, Ohio. Waddleton attended Columbia University in New York for postgraduate work on a full scholarship. Due to her interest in children born with drug addictions inherited from their using mothers, Waddleton did her master's on thesis on photo photoelectrophoresis, a medical term for the test used to screen pregnant mothers for drug use so that a baby can be treated for withdrawal immediately. Waddleton graduated from Columbia with her Master's of Science in Maternal and Infant Care with certification as a nurse midwife in 1967. While working toward her master's degree, she interned at a hospital in Harlem. There, Waddleton saw female patients suffering from life-threatening side effects of unsafe abortions. During her time at the hospital in Harlem, she learned about many aspects of unwanted pregnancy. Approximately 6,500 women were admitted for complications from incomplete abortions during her time there. After graduating from Columbia, Waddleton accepted a position as deputy chief of the Dayton, Ohio Health Department, visiting Nurse Association's maternal and child health programs. For 2 years, she also served as the nursing instructor at the Miami Valley Hospital School of Nursing in Dayton. While working in Dayton facilities, Waddleton kept track of the numbers of mothers receiving parental care, prenatal care, and and re- realized that about 30% of them received no care, no prenatal care. Based on her view of neighborhood health clinics helping pregnant women in New York, Waddleton pushed for a similar system in Dayton. Her efforts were rewarded with the establishment of one such clinic where Waddleton and another nurse would treat patients for minor issues and refer them to participating area hospitals for major issues and for childbirth. In Waddleton's role as midwife and deputy of visiting nurses in the Dayton Health Department, she saw many troubled women. The youngest girl that Waddleton cared for in her clinic was 13 years old. During her time in this position, Waddleton taught about the social consequences that pregnancy had on young mothers. The issue of teenage pregnancy troubled Waddleton, and she began to work for women's reproductive rights. She joined the board of the local Planned Parenthood, and shortly in 1970, Waddleton became the president of the Planned Parenthood of Dayton. The legal status of abortion was now on the political agenda. Waddleton accomplished a major victory for Dayton's Planned Parenthood when she began a successful initiative to provide teenagers with contraceptives without their parents' consent. In 1978, Faye Waddleton was appointed president of the Planned Parenthood Federation of America by its board, making her the first African American woman to lead the organization. Under her presidency at the Planned Parenthood Federation of America from 1978 to 1992, the organization increased its range of health care services and became more politically engaged. By the time she left the organization, it had more than 170 affiliates in 49 states and Washington, D.C., and operated more than 800 health centers. Faye Waddleton had two major goals upon becoming president: one, improve women's reproductive health, and two, promote gender equality. Waddleton wanted to expand the focus of Planned Parenthood to emphasize abortion rights. Anticipating that the 1980s will bring many political challenges, Waddleton wanted the organization to be able to respond effectively to the new environment created by the election of Ronald Reagan and the rise of the religious right. Waddleton was among those spearheaded advocacy for the pro-choice movement during the decade. However, the movement faced fierce opposition. Planned Parenthood clinics across the country experienced shootings, bombings, fires, and some employees were killed or injured. As Waddleton's time at Planned Parenthood progressed, there was a major decision by the Supreme Court, Webster versus Reproductive Health Services, 1989, in which the court held that states may withhold the use of public funds for abortions. At the same time, Waddleton was disappointed that about half of the Planned Parenthood affiliates did not offer abortions. This, as well as other personal interests, led to her resignation as president in February of 1992. So she was disappointed, Waddleton, about half of the Planned Parenthood affiliates did not offer abortions. And so Faye Waddleton worked for reproductive rights at a time in America where the political tension surrounding the issue was mounting. In January 1973, the court issued Roe versus Wade, ruling that women had the right under the Constitution to terminate their pregnancies. This was momentous and allowed for the creation of clinics where abortions could take place, rise in communities around the country. 3 years later, in Planned Parenthood versus Danforth, the Supreme Court rejected a lower court ruling that had upheld a Missouri law requiring, among other things, the consent of a woman's husband for abortion. In 1980, Harris versus McRae upheld the Hyde Amendment, ruling that parents receiving Medicaid could only receive Medicaid funds for an abortion if the pregnancy endangered their life. There weren't many cases fought on the Supreme Court level in the 1980s until Webster versus Reproductive Health Services in 1989, mentioned above, in which the court ruled that a state could withhold the use of public funds and public facilities for abortions unless the woman's life is in danger. In Hudson versus Minnesota in 1990, the court ruled that the state's parental notification requirement for minors seeking an abortion must be accompanied by a judicial bypass, allowing minors to apply for an exception in the courts. Planned Parenthood versus Casey versus Governor Casey. In 1992, the Supreme Court ruled that the states can make laws concerning certain requirements to get an abortion, including waiting periods and counseling, as long as it does not enact an undue burden on the mother to receive an abortion. After leaving Planned Parenthood, Waddleton hosted a Chicago-based television talk show from 1992 to 1995. After that show ended, Waddleton began to give lectures across the country and created a non-profit think tank called the Center for Gender Equality, renamed the Center for the Advancement of Women in 2002. The purpose for this center was to promote strategies for dismantling the obstacles that impede full equality for women, and to start a national conversation about the economic, political, and educational aspects of women's everyday lives. The center closed in 2010 due to fundraising difficulties. In 2017, Waddleton co-founded the Iroquois Quantum Computing with Nick Farina and Michigan State professor Johannes Polanen. Now, in her personal life, this is what he said. In 1970, Faye Waddleton's parents moved to Texas, where her mother preached at a small congregation outside of Houston. Waddleton was experienced in men's Waddleton was experienced in men's change in her occupational path as director of Planned Parenthood, Miami Valley, when her father got lung cancer. By the time that she found out he only had 6 months to live, he died that same year in 1970. Also, during this time, Waddleton's mother was struggling with the activism of her daughter. Her mother often told her that she was killing children and going against God's word. Waddleton struggled to balance her faith and her activism. Her church stood odds with pro-choice ideals. This will be a barrier in the relationship Waddleton held with her mother. Faye Waddleton met her husband Franklin Gordon in 1972. He was a jazz musician whom she had met at a conference sponsored by the Junior League. After the conference, they parted separate ways, but Franklin still wrote Faye poems and sent them in the mail. Knowing that she was turning 29 years old and wanting to have children, Waddleton decided to marry Gordon at the end of August 1972. By January 1975, she found out that she was pregnant. She stayed busy during her pregnancy by running for president of the National Executive Directors Council of Planned Parenthood's Midwest regional affiliates. When it came time for her to give birth, she put everything to the side for a few days. On October 1975, Waddleton gave birth to her daughter, Felicia Megan Gordon. Waddleton and Gordon divorced in 1981. So this is the life of this woman, and it is the information that most don't know in regards to this matter. We only know Jane Roe versus Wade, and from there were other cases that came about for the same reason, to get an abortion. And so we have the information here. The information is available to the public. It's just a matter of looking for it, researching. And now, something else that have been going on is um, this feminist movement where women once felt oppressed by men and they wanted liberation, and in one of these things is abortion. But abortion is a matter that comes about from our lifestyle, our choices in life, personal choices in life that we do and we make because we have free will to do so. And free will is something that we all have. A sense of justice is something that we all have. A sense of morality can decay in a human once we stop learning in reference to our Creator, Jehovah God, and our creation. Look at where we are in space. We are in space. We know that. We are in the abundance of space and among the many creations of God. God. So this thing about humans uh, going from Planned Parenthood, which was based on the use of the legal use of contraceptives, or that it can be a legal matter that one can choose to have a child at a time, that it is better for a woman to have a child or not to have a child at all. The use of contraceptives is something that became widely known. Now there are so many types of contraceptions. Basically, the purpose of a contraception is that it does not permit for a woman to conceive a baby, either because she doesn't want to, which is not a crime and is not a sin. It's not against God. It's not against what God requires. And the account that we find there in the Bible in regards to Onan applied only to Onan in the actions that he did. It did not apply to anyone else. It applied to him. But it teaches. It does teach us, because everything that is written in the Bible, there is no letter, words in the Bible that is something that we can say, as in any other book, that we can say, well, this is not important. I can do without this information. Everything in the Bible is inspired by God and long lasting. It lasts forever. It's counsel that will be there forever without it, without having the need for it to be corrected in some type of way. We see that this case is the foundation, the case Jane Roe versus Wade, which this woman did not have any abortion. We see how this other woman, who was president of this, what is the name of the company? The Planned Parenthood. Federation of America, Planned Federation, Planned Parenthood Federation of America. So something happened. Something happened in humanity around this time in the 1970s when the matter of abortions were becoming more popular. And so what happened? Why were these choices that were made have a basis? What was the basis for saying that uh, one woman or a woman or women can decide what to do with their bodies, but in reality, inside of her, there is another human being formed. And when we go to the information in regards to uh, 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 an ovary and a sperm conceiving, being conceived, being put together in order to form a human, the other words that you hear people saying, people using, is viable. Is it viable? I mean, do we even know what the word means? I'm going to show you a seed. Is this viable? I'm going to show you another seed. Is this viable? What does the word viable mean? Because people use it freely. See judges saying about if it's viable. Well, let's look at what that word means. I had looked up the meaning as I have been looking for words and meanings and to have understanding. The word viable, according to a dictionary, it can be used in plants, as I mentioned, the seed, right? Where is it? The seed this is the other one. These seeds are viable. But what does it mean? Well, capable of working successfully or feasible. When it comes to an unborn child that begins with a sperm, with the joining of a sperm and the ovary or the egg, it forms itself. It joins, it protects the cell, the sperm protects the cell, protects the space, protects it from having other sperms enter into that egg. It walks itself to the place where it will attach itself, himself or herself, to be fed by the mother. Is viable, is growing. Now, Of course, the word viable is used in botany when it comes to plants, when it comes to having a seed. And you know what? The seed equals one tree or one plant. And one's hope is based on evidence, right? So one hopes that uh, this grow into a big tree or into the tree that this uh, seed belong to. It's viable, and we wanted it to be. We will be very sad if the seed actually did not produce something. And yet we're asking about or mentioning the word viable in respects to the complex, most intelligent thing that there can be, which is the reproduction of life, passing on life to another being. Also, in Google, people also ask, what do we mean by viable? When something is viable, it has the ability to grow and to function properly. A viable seed can develop into a plant, while a viable company has the resources to succeed. What about a viable conception? A viable conception is there's no error in it. And yes, there are imperfections, but for the most part, and of course, we pass on to others, to humans, other humans, uh, inherited disease, illnesses. That's part of our being humans who were passed on sin and death from the first human on earth, the first humans, Adam and Eve, that had the power and the organs that are used for the only purpose, or should be used for the purpose of procreation. And of course, we do feel pleasure from being engaged in having sex with our loved one, with our marriage mate, with the one that one can call husband, or if it's a man married to a woman, then he calls her his wife. Having children is one of the things that the couple can do, but abstaining from having children is also a choice that they have, and it does not go against God. It does not go against any laws that apply to us today, being under the law of the Christ, of Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ could have gotten married, but he didn't. He could have had children, but he didn't, because his main purpose was the commission that he had. That instead of having children, he gained many by giving his life in exchange of for all of us who are imperfect humans, who had no savior until Jehovah God revealed that through Jesus, all humans could be saved, even though it's saved from what? Saved from sin and death. That is what we are on right now. And so Jesus Christ will be the exchange, the perfect exchange that will be given in our behalf. A perfect life had been lost, Adam, and so a perfect life could restore what God had made. And because God had already made it and God had already said it, and his word does not go back to him without accomplishing what he has said to accomplish, then he had to take a human life to correct the situation. And there was no human that could actually say, I'll give my life in exchange of others, because all of us suffer from the same thing. Now, in the situation here of this woman, Waddleton, that wanted to supposedly help women who, to her, the solution was that if you get pregnant when you're young, you can get rid of that life that you have procreated and move on with your life. As if it's a blister, as if it was a skin growth, the baby that she has inside of her. And so abortion will never be the solution. We know that because of the evidence that it is recorded in history, we have much data. We are floating in data that we can get to. We produce data that we cannot relate to other in order to understand. And there have been groups that have been formed, such as schools, universities, colleges, that teach these things as a way of a remedy to one's immoral behavior. Immorality is also part of who we are. Our conscience. Our conscience tells us what is correct and what is not. And of course, we have a conscience because it goes together with our free will and our ability to judge. But of course, if we do not have the whole information, whatever we judge, whatever we decide, whatever decisions we make, whatever opinions that we have, and we make them into laws, for those who are into that in behalf of others, they need to take into consideration that uh, all of these things, there is no privacy of anything when you have procreated a child that involves other humans or another human. There's no such thing. Two people two humans are required to make a baby through sex. And so marriage is the perfect union to have a baby. If the two persons are mentally stable, emotionally stable, if they are not uh, into vices that will harm the child that the woman is carrying, either by what the uh, husband does or what the wife does in their lifestyle. A child, another human, will be brought up into the family, and so if the family is not able to take care of self, is emotionally deficient, is uh, unstable because of mental health, then the individuals wanting to have a child should take into consideration uh, that they are going to bring a life that they both parents will be responsible for. And it doesn't matter what happens in the past. It doesn't matter what happened, what experience the father had, or what personal experiences the parents had of that child, or what emotional uh, deficit they may have, or mental deficit they may have. They will bring a child that will require two parents that uh, that take on the responsibility of raising all of what it takes of raising a child. Now, in regards to the matter, the matter of morality, the matter of uh, people wanting to just have casual sex, is a matter that uh, that is of importance, and that is the matter. That is the point. That is the situation. Sorry, not abortions, not abortions, because they're the same man, actually, the same doctor that that was with or that joined Dr. Bernard Nathanson. He was the biggest abortionist in the United States, killing over 75,000 children, and all for Sanger's cause. And so, another thing to consider in regards to Sanger, right? And that is the reason why I read the information in regards to her first husband, which name she kept even though she was remarried. She was known as Margaret Sanger. The information that I read in there is saying that uh, this doctor, or yeah, this doctor joins Margaret Sander, and his name is Bernard Nathanson, and I will see this information. We see what Wikipedia tells us about this. And so, according to Los Angeles Times, and this was uh, when he died, it was published that Dr. Bernard Nathanson dies at 84, obstetrician, championed abortion rights before switching sides. And so, why did he switch sides? Well, the time came for sonograms to be invented. And so, it says here, Dr. Bernard Nathanson, an obstetrician who was a leading champion of the abortion rights movement until he switched sides and vaulted to prominence as the narrator of the grisly anti-abortion film, The Silent Scream, died in New York, and he was 84. The cause was cancer, said his wife Christine. Now, Nathanson began performing abortions in the 1960s and later headed a major New York clinic where he oversaw 60,000 abortions. In 1969, he joined with feminist Betty Friedman and activist Lawrence Lader in founding the National Association for the Repeal of Abortion Laws, now known as NARAL, Pro-Choice America, and served as its medical director. Less than a decade later, however, Nathanson began to publicly profess his unease about the procedure that he estimated he had personally conducted 5,000 times. In 1984, spurred by remarks made by the then President Reagan, he arranged the filming of an abortion in process. The graphic ultrasound that purports to show, according to Nathanson's narration for the first time, a child being torn apart, dismembered, disarticulated, crushed, and destroyed by the unfeeling steel instruments of the abortionist, became the basis of the silent scream. Reagan endorsed the movie in a speech before 70,000 March for Life activists in Washington in early 1985. Copies were distributed to every member of Congress as well as 9 members of the U.S. Supreme Court. Critics denounced the film as propaganda and emotional pornography and questioned its authenticity. Some called Nathanson a grandstander, others a traitor. Asked her opinion of her former comrade in arms, Friedman told New York Magazine in 1985. Nathanson was born in New York City on July 31st, 1926, the son of a gynecologist. A graduate of Cornell University, he earned a medical degree in 1949 from McGill University in Montreal. Now, in 1974, a year after the Supreme Court established abortion as a fundamental right in Roe versus Wade, Nathanson wrote in the New England Journal of Medicine that there was no longer serious doubt in my mind that human life exists within the womb from the very onset of pregnancy. In 1977, he tried unsuccessfully to stop the abortion of a 33-week-old fetus that had been diagnosed with a lethal form of Darwinism. He stopped performing abortions and left St. Luke's the following year. Reagan's 1984 comment on that the unborn often feel pain that is long and agonizing during an abortion spurred a furor that Nathanson sought to address with The Silent Scream. He later made another film, Eclipse of Reason, about a late-term abortion. He also held faculty positions at Cornell and New York Medical College. And so this has been the matter in regards to abortion. And what has happened is that every time the conscience of a human that has been involved in the matter uh, of killing these human beings in the process of becoming human beings, or uh, growing up to be a human being, and of course, uh, there is no other way to call it but viable from the beginning, obviously. And the growing of the growing into a human is a process that do not stop at birth. And so our beginning is inside the womb. Our beginning is separate from the mother's life. The conceived person begins a life at the time of conception, and it does all that it needs to be doing in order to be. Now, something else I wanted to bring about, because I mentioned this, and it mentions over here that Nathanson began performing abortions in the 1960s and later headed a major New York clinic where he oversaw 60,000 abortions. So that's mentioned. And the other word that was mentioned is eugenics. And that was mentioned in regards to Margaret Sanger. Well, why is mentioned? It is mentioned in the biography that is made by Wikipedia, and it is mentioned that in regards to the woman Sanger, that she had seek for support with the Ku Klux Klan. She gave speeches at rallies to get support for uh, her Planned Parenthood. Now, there's a problem with that, and that is where uh, the eugenics word came from, by her actions. He says that in 1928, conflict within the birth control movement leadership led Sanger to resign as the president of the ABCL and take full control of the CRB, renaming it the Birth Control Clinical Research Bureau, or BCCRB, marking the beginning of a schism that would last until 1938. Sanger invested a great deal of effort communicating with the general public. From 1916 onward, she frequently lectured in churches, women's clubs, homes, and theaters to workers, churchmen, liberals, socialists, scientists, and upper class women. She once lectured on birth control to the Women's Auxiliary of the Ku Klux Klan in Silver Lake, New Jersey. In her autobiography, she justified her decision to address them by writing, Always to me, always to me, any aroused group was a good group, meaning that she was willing to seek common ground with anyone who might help promote legalization and awareness of birth control. She described the experience as weird and reported that she had the impression that the audience were all half wits and therefore spoke to them in the simplest possible language, as if she were talking to children. She wrote several books in the 1920s which had a nationwide impact in promoting the cause of birth control. And so the explanation that is given there, it seems that it could be that the reason why she did so, uh, her main goal was contraceptives. And of course, later on, we know that this doctor joins in the 1960s. In 1966, she dies. In the information that I looked up, it doesn't mention, it doesn't say if this doctor joined in the 1960s, meaning after she died. In any situation, after she died, uh, the matter of abortion becomes uh, a matter of um, contraception, right? So, but she did give this speech at the KKK or Ku Klux Klan to find support that she wanted for the birth control movement. And of course, Betty Friedman was a feminist, a feminine woman, a feminist looking for securing rights of women and women's rights movement. This Dr. Bernard and this Betty Friedman, uh, they started to search for a woman to use to sue the government on this matter of abortion. And they found the woman who was also a mother of two, and then she was carrying, she was pregnant, she was carrying a baby, Norma McCorvey, who, who, according to what her oldest daughter says and has said in interviews, is that her mother, uh, her mother wasn't stable mentally, and to quote her words, let me see if I find the information. Uh, she calls her complicated and dysfunctional. And that is what Melissa Mills says. And she was a teen when she learned that she had two other sisters. And Shelley Lynn Thornton is the baby that everyone wanted aborted, but that did not happen because Norma gave birth uh, to the child and she was not aborted. Norma was a poor girl with a 10th grade education and uh, and also dysfunctional. And when you hear the interview of the eldest daughter, you can see that the daughter understands her mother, Norma. Understand that she was a woman who was and who had gone and who had been through a lot. And by the time that this happened, by the time that she got pregnant for the third time, she was uh, in drugs, doing drugs, and drinking a lot. And basically, according to what she said, and also the what is his name? Dr. Bernard Nathanson, they they admitted to to what they were doing was incorrect, was not moral. And then Norma said later on that practically she was bought by group of peoples that wanted her to be the person that will be fundamental to, and she was fundamental to decisions that were made through the legal systems, through humans that represent justice, to have this movement become a reality for them. And it happened, of course. But Norma said that she really did not wanted to do it, to be part of this abortion thing. And then later on, uh, she joins a religious group, and she admits her sins, and um, she then no more wants to have uh, a a lesbian status as she had been for many years, and most likely started in teenagehood. And we know more now in regards to that, and illnesses that can make one uh, have confusion with one's gender. And that is, in my opinion, as I mentioned, everything is in my opinion, and also in my personal experience, in what I have seen in humanity, and how their behavior is affected because of having a medical condition or a mental illness. So I have given you the whole story in regards to what humans think and what humans are doing. So maybe the situation was that, uh, as it happens, we want something, and someone has the power to give you that. Then you ask for it, beg for it, demand it, and you have also people in situations that may benefit from whatever others want. And so we don't know why the judges decided such decision, even though there was information in regards to the human formation. And by the way, it is viable from conception time, and you give it time to grow. You give time to grow to that human, and that human will continue to grow even uh, after being born, and will continue to renew ourselves and grow in not in height, because we're not trees, right? But whatever height we have, that is part also of our genes, of our family line. Then that's the height that we have. The eye colors that we have also is written from the DNA that we have. And at the end, we are all humans, imperfect humans, suffering from the same thing, which is sin, and ultimately we can die. And sin is attached uh, to to how well we are. Is attached to sickness and illnesses, according to what Jesus said. And so the matter is not about women's rights. That's not the only issue. And the issue is, should women have the right to end the life, the viable life of that human inside of her womb. Does the woman have the right to kill her own offspring that has been conceived with another human? And so, therefore, this thing about protecting women's privacy is not. Is not. It's not. It doesn't exist because it takes two humans with their own free will, their own thinking, their own ideas, their own mind, their own wants, their own desires, their own likes, dislikes, approval, disapproval, in order to make uh, or procreate a life of a human, of another human, because we are alive. That is the point. Do women have the right to kill their offspring just because they want to? Just because they do not want to become a mother? Just because they don't feel ready, but they felt ready to have sexual relations that will end up in having children. And this matter is a matter that has to do with uh, what God requires from humans, and it will be resolved by God. It will be resolved by God. Why? Because we humans want to uh, impose on some other humans, right? The Levites, the Hebrews, the judges that they had were not paid. And you know why they were not paid? Because unlike now, judges are paid to do their job. It's not something that they do out of their own willingness. They work, and they can be pressured from all sides. They can be pressured from inside their work. They can be pressured from outside, from what the people want, and they can end up making decisions also based on fear of men. And what is fear of men? Fear of men is not that you're afraid of people or afraid of humans who are male. No. Uh, Fear of men is when one is afraid of what other humans can do to me, to you, because they have the power to do so. For example, um, a judge has the power to change laws, but he is not himself doing this. There are other humans that are for or against the same thing, and uh, and so it is called protecting the Constitution. And the Constitution of what? Because uh, there is a Constitution, and we usually uh, go to or relate it to what the Constitution of the United States is, the written paper. But in reality, what that Constitution constitutes about is the Constitution of human life. And basically, what humans think is correct or incorrect, those who make decisions, those who make the laws, those who are um, on top in places of power. And so supposedly is the constitution of the human life and everything that composes it, everything that involves this constitution of the human life. And I will read it from the the and the constitution, right, it is is controlled or maneuvered by the different levels of powers that they can have. That is why we have that the Supreme Court overrules the other courts that are state courts, and their decisions that they may make. And everything is supposedly right with the thinking that uh, one's constitution, one's rights, one's humanity is protected. And so uh, the there is there is a case, or there is a let me see. Uh-huh. There is a Mr. Henry Blackmon who was the Supreme Court, a United States Supreme Court judge, and who was in the majority in the decision uh, that, in his opinion, he based uh, on his personal opinions in regards to women's right to privacy. He's the one who said that. And basically, the court set rules for each trimester based on the 14th Amendment, and this was um, also including the case of Planned Parenthood versus Casey, or Governor Casey. And his name, let me see if I can find the name. Um, I have written his name. Okay, so this was 19 years after Roe versus Wade. The United States Supreme Court reevaluates the new case, or the case with a new case. And the case that they were reevaluating was the Roe versus Wade and the constitutionality of women's rights to choose. The new case is known as Planned Parenthood of Southeast Pennsylvania versus Governor Robert Casey of Pennsylvania. The court uh, did not overthrow the ruling, and we don't know the reason why. We don't know the reason why other humans make the decisions that they make. It could be based on pressure, um, which it will be fear of men, fear of what others can do, Maybe what the people can do. Well, if they unite, then they can get rid of whomever is in power. And basically, uh, those who are in power, that's what they fight for. They want to be in power. They want to be known. Um, they they want to rule over others, and they diminish, or they want to rule over the uh, the the liberty that we all have to make choices. This is why, when it comes to these, there is no other way to look at the situation but from God's viewpoint. When you look at situations from God's viewpoint, what's moral and what is not, then you are going to take the correct decision. Because God does not make mistakes. And we humans are in this planet, and we have made it our universe. We have made it, well, for some. I know I stand on this planet among the vast creation of Jehovah God. And I respect that. I know there is a God. I believe there is a God. And I advocate in regards to that matter, in regards to God's kingdom that will settle all matters and justice will be brought. And in relation to many situations, in the situation of those who have committed the crime of abortion, it's a crime according to God. And I am going to tell you that it is possible to have people from all places on the earth, from different languages, different nationalities, to think in the way that God considers to be appropriate and moral. Jehovah's Witnesses are an example of this. And we have not been forced into anything. We have learned by studying the Bible that what God requires. Who is God? Who is Jesus Christ? And if you want to know more in regards to all of these matters that I have considered, you can visit jw.org for more information. And so the last thing I wanted to look up is the matter of abortion. And you can find this information under the Bible's viewpoint and on at jw.org. And so it mentions that tens of millions of unborn babies are deliberately aborted each year, a number that exceeds the population of many countries. A personal choice or a question of morality. So, which one? What people say. Women who have an abortion do so for various reasons, including economic hardship, relationship problems, the desire for freedom to pursue further education or a career, or not wanting to be a single mother. Others, however, view abortion as morally wrong, a violation of the trust that has been placed upon a pregnant woman. The life that is procreated, that is separate from her life, right? That is what has been placed upon a pregnant woman. And also, Jehovah God provided a savior for us in that he planted the life of Jesus in Mary's womb. It was a process, a miracle made by God in which there was no intervention from a man because it was not required. The life of Jesus, which already existed in heaven, did not begin on earth. Therefore, God could not have a sperm uh, into Mary and Mary's ovaries, Mary's egg, to form the baby, because Jesus existed already in heaven. The only thing that happened was that his life was transferred into the the cell that will become the human that was born and named Jesus, and then later on became Christ. That is that information. Then, in regards to the matter of having many babies, as many as you can and want and should and must, is not biblical. It's not a biblical teaching. Now, what the Bible says is, in God's eyes, life, especially human life, is sacred. The life of animals are also important to Jehovah God, but the life of humans is sacred. This principle applies to a baby growing in the womb, a place designed by God to be a safe haven for a developing child. In the Bible, it's mentioned at Psalms 139, 13, and 16. You kept me screened off in my mother's womb, said a Bible writer. He added, your eyes even saw me as an embryo. All its parts were written in your book regarding the days when they were formed. And everything has its time. It's a timing for that baby to grow. After the baby is born, that baby continues to grow. Then humans continue to renew themselves. Even though we're getting older and even die from illnesses and disease, we continue to renew our cells, to renew our organs, to renew everything that is in the body. Because why? We were created to live forever in this planet. That many have said this planet is millions of years old, planet Earth. And according to the Bible record, God made man from the ground that has existed for millions of years and will continue to exist, because God will not destroy his planet because of us humans. Planet that was designed for life to exist. That's why you will not find any other place in the universe that contains life, no matter what some who want to sell the story may say. Now, in God's view of the life of an unborn child is also reflected in his law to the nation of Israel and in our God-given conscience. God's law stated that a person who assaulted a pregnant woman and killing her unborn child was subject to the death penalty, the killer paying with his own life for the life he took. And that principle and law is found in Exodus 21, and it says, if men should struggle, and of course this is given an example, and it will not be taken that only in that situation. It will be in any of the situations that will cause this to happen. If men should struggle with each other and they hurt a pregnant woman and she gives birth prematurely, but no fatality results, the offender must pay the damages imposed on him. The damages here will be that the child was born prematurely, before it was time for the child to be born, but there is no fatality. The damages were to be paid because the child was born prematurely. Then he must pay it through the judges. So it will be as paying it through the courts, as we do now. That's where this come from. These things that we do now come from what humans in the past did. And but now, if there is a fatality, if the child, not the mother, but the child, because it says over here, they hurt a pregnant woman and she gives birth prematurely. So the mother is okay, she gives birth, but the child is premature, but there's no fatality, meaning he did not die, the child, or he or she did not die. Now, but if the child, he or she, fatally he dies or she dies, if fatality does occur, then you must give life for life. The child that was inside of the woman was considered a human that his life or her life was valuable, that if he or she died, it will be the law that applies, life for life will be applied. And of course, life as God has intended it to be, through a man and a woman having intercourse, having sexual relations in the marriage arrangement, in the marriage union, is what God had purpose for it to be. And for the wife, the husband and the wife to be also applying the what God has said in regards to the family union, and the arrangement in regards to levels of power. And so some people may find that offensive, but actually it's a protection for the woman in the situation, of course, that Adam and Eve will not have sinned. Then it will have worked out very well. But that's not the situation. So whatever relationship that we decide that we're going to go in, we have to take into consideration that we are imperfect, we women are imperfect, and that men are imperfect too. And that men, will not perform their leadership in a perfect way. And so, but in that regard, also, we have to take into consideration what men don't know about women and what women do know about men. And when taking decisions, when making decisions, and for some, this was a matter that, in regards to Jane Roe and Henry versus Henry Wade, some people felt, well, she's alone in the world. Nobody's with her. Let me be with her. Let me join her in her quest. And many people joining that. And then also we had the people who are selfish, who are immoral, and there's no other way to put it, to put the situation, to explain the situation. Some people are immoral. Some people only want to have sex, not a relationship. They do not, especially marriage. And in some women, most women, we will allow a situation because our made, our makeup, not makeup that I put in my face, but what make us humans, female humans, in how we feel in regards to and also because it includes our feelings and emotions. We are more into being the ones who take care. And because of these feelings, sometimes we find men that uh, seem broken, right, in some way or another, and we want to pick up that man and put him together. Supposedly, in our minds, we may think that, and then that may lead to unwanted relationships with that type of human men, male men, that behave in these ways. And for some women, and this is what I know, because I have seen women, in me myself, I have found myself in the past in the situation with feelings and emotions, and the woman is the one who take care and have, even though one might not be a mother, we feel motherly. And so that type of situation can lead us into that we want to have a family, we want to have someone to love, to care, to care for, to hug, to be together, to talk with. And but basically, when we look at reality, uh, men, most men, uh, they are not into that unless they have been taught by Jehovah God through His Word, the Bible, which that's what happens with men, male men, of course, in Jehovah's Witnesses organization. Which in Jehovah's Witnesses organization, there is not such a thing of I am going to be a transgender and still, uh, think that I can be uh, having a relationship with God, because the relationship is not with Jehovah's Witnesses. The relationship in a spiritual matter, spiritual sense, is with Jehovah God, the one who inspired the Bible, and even wrote part of it, because the Ten Commandments, as we know, were written by the hand of God. And so um, we in regards to becoming a worshiper of Jehovah, because that's what you will become, uh, uh, you will unite Jehovah Witnesses in the worship of Jehovah God. You will not be worshiping Jehovah Witnesses or worshiping anything else other than uh, Jehovah God. Even Jesus Christ worships Jehovah God because he's a created thing also. And so the Bible refers to him as the first creation and God's uh, first son. And then together they made everything else. And so if for those who have aborted their children, know that because it says life for a life, meaning that that human that you aborted was alive, that child has the right to live, and he will or she will, because as part of um, God's resurrected ones, there will be those as the ones that were aborted, that had not given were not given the right to live, and were killed before they were able to uh, to continue to live outside of the womb. They will be resurrected by Jehovah God through Jesus, who will make or undo. He will undo all the works of the devil. And in reference to our actions now, because those who have died, those who are dead, who are resting in death, right? Because Jesus called it that way, and so we call it that way. That death is sleeping, because Jesus will call the names of all of those who have died, the righteous and the unrighteous, will become resurrected, and the sins committed by those who died have paid for their sins with their death. And so when they get to be resurrected again, they will be giving another chance to life. But what about us? Us, we have the opportunity now to acknowledge all of the things that we're doing, set our consciences straight with what God requires. It doesn't matter what uh, others think. If you're following the guidance that is found in the Bible, you will not uh, be making decisions that later on will result to be bad decisions. And if you need help with understanding on how to apply laws and principles from God, instead of relying on the laws that are set by humans, imperfect humans, to guide themselves or others, uh, then you can go to find out how you can understand the Bible and how to apply the principles found in the Bible. You can find information in jw.org that will guide you to understand the guidance, and the laws and statutes and principles that are found in the Bible, understanding them and also applying them in our lives, and also in decisions that we take and make that will affect the life of others, especially those who are taking the lead in and have power over others. So that is the information that I had. We have the opportunity now to turn around from our actions and uh, stop doing what is not agreeable with God, that is not acceptable with God, with Jehovah God. Ask for forgiveness of our sins against God and against His laws and against His principles, His commands, and stop sinning. It's easy. It's that way. And then it is required that we become baptized. All humans must get baptized, and they must get baptized. And that is a symbol of being in an agreement, a covenant with God. Is no more as it was back then with the Hebrews, that it was a group of people and you were dedicated because you were born to God. That's it. Your parents had to teach you in the laws and requirements and commands of God, and that was it. No, now is we are under Jesus Christ, and one of the requirements is that we know God, that we know Jesus, that we follow Jesus' commands and footsteps, meaning His example, His actions, the way that He said for things to be done. And we must get baptized because that symbolizes our relationship with God and our commitment with God. And of course, we must have a place to worship God. We must have a group of people that are doing the same thing. And that group exists. As prophesied, this group will be evident because it will follow the Christ. It will be preaching and teaching as the Christ did. And it will be something that will be happening simultaneously, the preaching and teaching activity, around the globe, around the world, around the earth. Okay, so that is the information that I had in regards to these issues, and I am legally binded with God because I have made a commitment, become baptized, become a follower of the Christ, and my commitment is with God, as well as each and every Jehovah's Witness that is doing the same thing. Each and every one of us is dedicated to God, and each and every one of us will be accountable for our own actions, our own personal actions. And so one of the requirements is that we preach and teach to others, and so that people can make decisions based on their understanding, using their free will, and not being forced into worshiping Jehovah God, and we have free will. That is why some do and some don't. But know that the situation that started with Adam and Eve will have a conclusion. It will be on that day of judgment that God's call Armageddon. It will relate to all humans living on earth, including children. And um, note that in the beginning with Adam and Eve, before the sin, there were no religions. They were only spirituality, spiritual people. And they believed in the same thing. God was real. God is real. God had a direct relationship with his creation until they sinned. And then God purposed to rescue the offspring, which are all of us. And so for any information that you need, go to jw.org. Also, a Bible study is required in order to know God, his purpose, to know Jesus, and how that kingdom uh, will the kingdom of God that is being ruled by Jesus from heaven will take care of all these matters that we find difficult. But you won't find it difficult to decide what is right and what is wrong when you base your decisions on Jehovah's guidance that is found in the scriptures, in his word, the Bible. Okay, so hopefully I will continue with my presentations more often. I wanted to say that I have been not feeling well, and there have been many things in my personal life. So what I do is I detach myself. If I cannot function, then I'm not going to make myself do something and then get to be uh, worse, feeling more stressed out or more anxious. And in the situation that relates to Frank, who has autism spectrum disorder, uh, the situation with him is that he is working, he's making efforts, making efforts uh, to to not to become um, neurotypical. Sorry about that. Not to become neurotypical, but for him to become functional, and it for his own personal interest. And so, yes, he does things that can cause harm to me, can cause distress, anxiety because of the things that he repeats, because that's what he has learned to do. So it is it is not that it is not that he wants to do this, right? So this is something that I know and that um, I manage. It is not it is not something that I want to put blame on him as if he was doing things because he wants to do it, because his intentions are those. he's trying a very, very, very making much effort in order for him to make correct decisions based on himself. And um, as I go through this, to this that he's going through, also managing his health is something that he has not been doing. So I have seen that there is a delay in his understanding again, and I have put it at 2 days so far delay. And what I mean with that is that I tell him something, the information, but he will not capture it to understand it immediately as he was doing, but he is actually delayed, and that is because of his nutrition. And he was doing good in 2018 when he started taking the supplements that I was giving him, but he decided that he did not want supplements, and so um, he stayed. He stayed some months uh, that he did take the supplements, and he and also making sure that he eats, and I could see the difference. He could understand immediately, but he has lost that ability because of nutrition deficiencies. And so um, he's trying, and of course, now that he has gone through the process of not following guidance and doing because he thinks there is a shortcut to to what we were doing, and there's not. And he has found out that we have to go back now to him taking again these supplements that were benefiting him, but now he's delayed again. And as I mentioned, I have noticed his delay is about uh, 2 days. So he will reason after 2 days of what I have said, and he will understand it. And also, he's regressing in his remembering, he's memorizing things um, that he should do or things that he shouldn't do. And also in discernment and understanding of information in regards to what he's supposed to do, because the goal is the goal for him is, or the meta, the goal for him is to become uh, identify with self as self, because he wasn't doing that before. Now he's understanding, but now with this regressing is making it more difficult, of course. But what I wanted to mention is that when it comes to Frank, I did have mentioned certain things because I know it affects others, because Frank is not, uh, or well, I should say, is as others who have autism and um, have made themselves uh, financially stable because of what uh, their accomplishments. And um, and so basically what I wanted to mention also is that the feelings are not involved, as it happens in those who have autism, have different have feelings that they feel for themselves, in their body, for their emotions, but not for others, not for other humans. That is difficult for them, and there is reasons, of course. Um, they don't have the perception that they need in order for them to uh, see, observe feelings in others or understand the feelings of others, even though they are most times, for those who are outgoing and have autism, most likely they are replicating identity patterns that they have learned and memorized and behave in these ones, in this type of identities, in order for them to communicate, for them to be outgoing, for them uh, to to be out there and be part of the world instead of being quiet. So it's not when I have my own mental uh, conditions, and so my own anxiety problems, my own PTSD, my own things that I am going through and experiencing in my body. And so sometimes I shut down and it, I cannot even do anything. And um, but that is because of what I'm going through, not related to Frank, because I have learned not to mix the feelings. Feelings and emotions do not work when it comes to dealing with those who have autism, because they don't take into consideration that they take into consideration, is it true or is it not? So is this good or is this bad? Is this advantageous or is this not advantageous? So basically they will go in the literal way, not taking the feelings into consideration, is needed or not, and that's it. And most likely that's the reason why they succeed in businesses, uh, because you can't do business with feelings. It has to be all with the mind, intellectual abilities, and of course, it has to do with uh, replicating the right things. Because if you're replicating bad things, then, or uh, you're replicating those who were not good or honest business persons, then you will be um, you will not be doing well in your business. Also, you will go through the same things that that person went through, that you have learned how to replicate. All right, so I just wanted to say that because I did not want anyone to think that it is because of Frank, or because of whatever anyone's opinion on the internet may be in regards to me, in regards to my appearance or whatever. I don't. It's not that I don't feel, but I know, I see myself in the mirror. I know my imperfections, and I know my how I look. I know how I look, and um, so there's no surprise, uh, you know, if someone has an opinion in regards to me, and especially for those who have autism, they like to connect with, or they like to uh, remember people by the certain things that calls their attention. And so then maybe someone might refer to um, how I look, what I said, where my surroundings are, which basically that is why I put the cover in the back so that there is less distractions. And so, because people usually will be concentrating and looking in the background, what is in the background, and then they do not hear or they do not listen to what is being said, but instead they are looking around my face, my teeth. And by the way, right, for those who think that having gaps in your teeth is actually some kind of defect that you have to correct, it is not, right? So um, everyone is different, every human is different. I never consider that my teeth had something wrong with them. Some people who have brought up with the thinking that their gaps in their teeth are uh, some some kind of something that need to be repaired in the body. It is not. People who are in the business of selling aligners, for those or that have made the idea that um, gappy teeth are an issue. Um, well, they are in the business of selling these things, so they will advertise it as there's something wrong with you because you have gaps. No, you will need though dental work if you have cavities, if you need to have a professional cleaning for your teeth, if you broke your tooth for whatever reason and you need to align it back again, yeah, those are things that need to be corrected and should be corrected. But for those who have gaps in their teeth, there is no need to correct that. There's nothing wrong with it. All right. So I will be speaking again. I don't know when, and I will make it be something that I will do uh, more often. I'm planning to, right? I'm planning to. Everything for now is a go. Is a goal for me. So I thank you for joining me, and I hope you have a good day tomorrow or today, Tuesday. It's still dark, so I call it tomorrow, but um, it is Tuesday already. So have a happy Tuesday, or uh, have a happy night if you're already beginning your evening time in the other part of the world. All right, so until later. Bye bye.